This video covers the Math 060 Exam 2 Review Part 2, which covers 4.1 through 4.5. Solve the following system by graphing, then check the answer. To solve this by graphing, we write both of our equations in slope-intercept form. I add x to both sides, and I have y equals x minus 2. Go down to -2 and go up 1 and over 1. Graphing 3x minus 2y equals 8. We would subtract 3x from both sides. Gives us -2y is -3x plus 8. Dividing by -2 gives me y equals 3/2 x minus 4. Graph that one by going down to -4 and rising 1, 2, 3, and running 2. Rising 1, 2, 3, and running 2. Rising 1, 2, 3, and running 2. Another 1, 2, 3, and running 2. We're going down 1, 2, 3, and left 2. And I can see that these two have intersected at 4, 2. Right now it looks to me like that's the point of intersection, but I check it by plugging it back in. The opposite of 4 plus 2 is -2. And 3 times 4 minus 2 times y is 12 minus 4, which is 8. And so that works out. So we put a big 4, 2 up there, circle that. That is the solution to the system. Solving algebraically, we have substitution and we have elimination. In the form that letter A is in, elimination is the most suitable method. Because there's a 3 sitting there, I want to have a -3 sitting there in front of my x. So I can multiply everything by -3, and I will get it to be -3x plus 6y equals 0. First equation is 3x plus y equals 7. Now we add those two equations together, eliminate the x's, and we get 7y equals 7. Dividing both sides by 7 gives us y equals 1. Now we substitute it back in, x minus 2 times 1 equals 0, says x minus 2 is 0, or x is equal to 2. So I think the solution is 2, 1, but I'm going to check it back into the first equation. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7, and second equation is 3 minus 2 times 1, or 3 minus, x equals 2. Y equals 1. So 2 minus 2 times 1 is 0. And so that checks out. Letter B. Elimination is most suitable there. Since there's a 4 sitting there, I'd love there to be a 4 in front of that y, or make it -4. So I'll achieve that by multiplying everything by 4. First equation is going to stay unchanged. Second equation gives me 8x minus 4y equals -4. Add those two equations together, which gives me 11x equals -11. Divide both sides by 11, and I get x is equal to -1. Plugging back into the first equation, 3x plus 4y is -7. I can now solve for y. It's -3 plus 4y is -7. Adding 3 to both sides gives me 4y is negative 4. Dividing by 4 gives me y equals negative 1. I want to check this by plugging it back in. 3 times negative 1 plus 4 times negative 1 is negative 3 minus 4, which is negative 7. Second equation, 2 times negative 1 minus negative 1 is negative 2 plus 1, which is negative 1. Negative 1 is the solution. Letter C, substitution is the most suitable method here. The second equation has the x plus 2y, so we'll take x plus 2 times the y, which is 2x plus 5. That gives me x plus 4x plus 10 equals negative 5. The left side is 5x plus 10. Right side's negative 5. So we subtract 10 from both sides, and that gives us 5x equals negative 15. Dividing both sides by 5, we get x is equal to negative 3. Substituting that back into y equals 2x plus 5, y is 2 times negative 3, which is negative 6, plus 5, which is negative 1. I think that's the solution. Check it back into the second equation, x plus 2y. That's negative 3 plus 2 times negative 1, which is negative 5. Letter D. I'd like to use elimination on that, but in the first equation, I need to get all of my variables on the same side, so I add 4x to both sides, giving me 4x plus 8y equals 15. My second equation is x plus 2y is 4. Having a 4 on that x means I would love to have a negative 4 sitting on that x. So to achieve that, I multiply it by negative 4. First equation stays the same. Second equation is negative 4x minus 8y is negative 16. I add these two equations together. That cancels all of the variables off, and it leaves me with some kind of statement that appears to be false. That's indicative of something that has no solution. When you get a false statement without any of the variables, it's a no solution. Letter E, that one is set up ready to go for the elimination method. I can't easily multiply 5 by something to get a 7 there, so we swap and use 35s. 7 times negative 5 is negative 35. 5 times 7 is positive 35. Multiplying them all the way through, negative 35x minus 21y equals 7 times 19 is 133. Five times 7 is 35. 5 times positive 4 is 20. And 5 times negative 27 is negative 135. We set out to eliminate the x's, and now we have negative 21y plus 20y, which is negative y. And 133 minus 135 is negative 2. Divide both sides by negative 1, and we have y equals 2. Plugging that back into the first equation to find x, we have negative 5x minus 6 is 19. Adding 6 gives me 25. So we divide both sides by negative 5, and we see that x is negative 5. So right now I think the answer is 2, negative 5, and I'm going to check this. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10, minus 3 times negative 5 That's negative 10. Plus 15, and it's supposed to be 19. And so as I look back here, I see that the x is negative 5 and the y is 2. This is why we check our work. Negative 5 times x minus 3 times y is positive 25 minus 6, which is 19. 7 times x plus 4 times y is negative 35 plus 8, which is negative 27. Now I'm sure that negative 5, 2 is our solution. Letter F. With the 8 in the second equation, I can easily multiply the first equation by negative 2 and obtain the opposite of 8. That's negative 8x minus 12y is negative 10, and 8x minus 9y equals 3. Adding these together, I have negative 21y equals negative 7. Dividing both sides by negative 21 gives me y equals 7 over 21, which is 1/3. The first equation says 4x plus 6 times y is 5. So we have 4x plus 3 equals 5. 5 minus 3 is 2. And dividing both sides by 4 gives me x is equal to 1/2. 1/2, 1/3. I'd like to check that back into the second equation. 8 times x minus 9 times y. 8 times 1/2 is 4. 9 times 1/3 is 3. And 4 minus 3 is 1. It's supposed to be 3. So obviously there's a mistake somewhere. If it didn't work back in this equation, then that means I need to retrace my steps. Negative 2 times 4x is negative 8x, minus 12y is negative 10. That looks good. I added those together, got negative 21y equals negative 7. That looks good. Divide by negative 21, and I got 1/3. That looks good. 4x plus 6 times 1/3, 6 times 1/3. That doesn't look good. So I subtract 2 from both sides, and 5 minus 2 is 3. That gives me 4x equals 3, or x equals 3/4. Now I think it's 3/4, 1/3. So if x is equal to 3/4 and y is equal to 1/3, 4 goes into 8, 2 times 3 is 6, and 6 minus 3 is 3. So 3/4, 1/3. Letter G. We see that the equations are not lined up, so we want to get them all in the same form. The first equation looks good. The x's and y's are on the same side. The second equation doesn't, so I'm going to subtract 2y from both sides, giving me 3x minus 2y, and then subtract 2 from both sides, and now we have a negative 2 on the right. These equations look identical, and once we multiply 1 by a negative 1 to eliminate the x's, we see that we end up eliminating everything. And when we eliminate all of the variables and we have a true statement, this is when we write infinitely many. Solutions. Number 9, the difference or subtraction between two numbers is 23. So that's x minus y is 23. Now the way that that is set up, to get a positive 23, x has to be the bigger number and y has to be the smaller number, because bigger minus smaller is positive. So now it says 1/3 times the larger number plus 3 times the smaller number is 81. Let's go ahead and clear the fractions in the second equation by multiplying everything by 3. 3 times 1/3 is 1. 3 times 3y is 9y. And 3 times 81 is 243. Now that we have a positive x, I'm going to multiply the first equation by negative to make it negative x plus y equals 23. This will eliminate the x terms, and y plus 9y is 10y, and 243 plus 23 266 divided by 10. That always makes me a little bit suspect. I don't feel like this is right. So I check back here and I see the negative x, the positive y, and the negative 23. 243 minus 23 is 220. So we divide both sides by 10, and that gives us y is equal to 22. So the smaller number should be 22. The bigger number then, x minus y is 23, or x minus 22 is 23, gives us x equals 45. Their difference is definitely 23, and 1/3 of 45 is 15, plus 3 times 22 is 66, and that's 81. So those are the numbers. Number 10, a boat traveled 30 kilometers downstream in 3 hours and made the return trip in 5 hours. We use rate times time is distance. And when you go downstream, you're with the current, so it should always take you less time to go down. When you return and go up the stream, it's going to take you more time, 5 hours. When you go downstream, you're with the current, you have x plus the current. Your speed that you can do by yourself plus the current. When you return up the river, the speed of your boat by itself, without any current, you're going to get slowed down by the current. You're going to subtract. And the distance down and up is 30. So we have rate times time is distance, and rate times time is distance. Now go ahead and divide both sides of this equation by 3 and get x plus y is 10, and both sides of this equation by 5 and get x minus y is 6. We can add those two equations together and cancel those y's and get 2x is 16. Dividing both sides by 2 gives us x is equal to 8. If x is 8, then x plus y is 10, and 8 plus y is 10, says y is 2. So the boat in still water is 8 kilometers per hour, and the current, which is y, is 2 kilometers per hour. Mixture problem. A laboratory technician has one batch of antiseptic that's 40% alcohol and a second batch that's 60%. She would like to make 8 liters of solution that is 55% alcohol. How many liters of each batch should be used? So we take the amount of solution, or the antiseptic, times the percentage, and that gives us the amount of alcohol. We have the 2 containers, the 40% and the 60%, that we're using to make a 55%. We're going to fill in all of our 6 boxes on the left and use the formula to fill in the boxes for the amount of alcohol. We don't know how much of the 40% we're going to use, nor the 60%, but we do know we're making 8 liters of a 55%. The rates are 40% or 0.4, and 60%, which is 0.6. And we have 55% of the 8 liters. Now the amount of alcohol in each container is 40% of X, 60% of Y, and 55% of 8. Once you get this far, the first column must add up. X plus Y is 8 because you have X liters and Y liters making 8 total liters. And then the amount of alcohol from each container gets poured into the total container. So between the two of them, they must make the total of 55% of 8. So we have X plus Y is 8. .55 times 8 giving us 4.4. Let's multiply everything by 10 in this equation, giving us 4x plus 6y equals 44. Now let's get rid of the 4 by multiplying everything in the first equation by -4. -4x minus 4y is -32. 4x plus 6y is 44. We add these two equations together and get 0. 6 minus 4 is 2. And 44 minus 32 is 12. Divide both sides by 2, and we get y is equal to 6. So the Y is the 60%. So we have 6 liters of the 60%. And we're making 8 liters. And so then that's 2 liters remaining of the 40%. So 6 liters of 60% and 2 liters of 40%. Harold wants to invest a total of $12,560. He plans to invest some in risky stocks and the rest in safe mutual funds. If the rate of return on the stocks is 7% and the mutual fund is 9%, how much should be invested in each so that the total interest earned is $942? This formula that we use is the interest formula. Interest is obtained by taking the principal times the rate. And so we want to know how much we're going to invest at 7% and 9%, X and Y. But we know total we're going to invest $12,560. The rates on these are 0.07 and 0.09. And we're told that the total interest earned is $942. So the interest in the 7% account is 7% of X. And the 9% is 9% of Y. The first column always adds and equals the third number, and the third column always adds and equals the third number. It's the amount of money invested. X dollars at one plus Y dollars at the other, and a total of $12,560. The interest earned on each account. One account had some interest, the other account had some interest, and their total interest they earned together is $942. I'd like to take my second equation and clear those 2 decimal spaces, multiply by 100. It'll give me 7x plus 9y equals 94200. To eliminate the x's, I'll multiply the first equation by -7. And 7 times 12,560 is -87,920. We add our 2 equations together now, and we get 0, 2y, 94,200 minus 87,920 is a 0 and an 8. 11 minus 9 is 2. And 13 minus 7 is 6, 6280. We divide both sides by 2, and we get y is equal to 3140. That's y, so we have 3140 at 9%. And remember, we invested 12,560. So x plus 3140 equals 12,560. 12,560 minus 3140 looks like 9420. At 7%. This concludes the video for the exam 2 review. Part 2 covers 4.1 through 4.5.